Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Lorenzo Kilgangrandi, and I am the founding director of the City Diplomacy Lab. I'm happy to welcome you to today's webinar on cities and inclusion. This is the third episode of the Cities and Social Solutions series, consisting of 4 webinars co-organized by the City Diplomacy Lab and Columbia Global Centers, Paris. In today's episode, we are pleased and proud to join forces with ICCAR, UNESCO's International Coalition of Inclusive and Sustainable Cities. I am glad to leave the floor to Ewan McQuaid-Jones, Program Specialist at UNESCO, for his opening remarks.
Thanks a lot, Lorenzo. Hello, everybody. Really nice to see you all, and thank you so much for joining. We're really happy to join forces with the City Diplomacy Lab, with Columbia University's Outreach Center here in Paris, to organize this webinar. We think it's a really useful opportunity for exchange directly between cities to identify some of the best practices around issues to do with social inclusion, to do with anti-racism and anti-discrimination. Lorenzo already mentioned that UNESCO has an international coalition of inclusive and sustainable cities. It's a network that has over 500 members around the world. 7 regional coalitions join forces within that international coalition, and it's part of UNESCO's efforts to really step up the global fight against racism and discrimination. In 2020, UNESCO's member states issued a global call against racism. This was a call recognizing the unprecedented rise in racism and discrimination within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. It really was an impetus for UNESCO to step up all of the efforts to fight racism and discrimination across all areas of its mandate. And municipal and city actors are really at the heart of this, with a lot of the competencies that are relevant for UNESCO's competences in education, in culture, being manifested most directly within these level of governance. So we're really happy to join this exchange today. We think it really maps in very closely to a lot of the strategic priorities that we have through this coalition and through the work that we are advancing more generally on inclusive city governance, and of course on the fight against racism and discrimination. So thank you so much for joining us today, and really excited to follow the conversations. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Ewan. It's a pleasure to work with you, and it's a great opportunity for us to have 3 amazing cities part of ICCAR represented today. Indeed, we are facing today a lot of urban challenges, and inclusion is absolutely one of them. The opportunity that we have today is to discuss some innovative urban solutions so that other cities worldwide can get inspiration and possibly get in touch with our participants in order to replicate and adapt these kind of initiatives. In fact, we have 3 cities that represent the global commitment of ICCAR throughout the world, representing 3 different regions: Gwangju in Korea, Barcelona in Spain, and Montevideo in Uruguay. And we will learn how cities can effectively achieve their inclusion goals by leveraging their threefold unique nature as the closest political institution to residents and local actors, as major service providers in areas as diverse as education, employment, public transportation, housing, cultural activities, and so on. And of course, as part of this global network that Yuan was mentioning, committed to collaborating in advancing inclusion and fighting discrimination. And for that, it is my great pleasure to introduce our speakers, Anabel Rodríguez Basanta from the city of Barcelona. Anabel is the chief of the Human Rights Department of the Barcelona City Council in a directorate which integrates different services and programs for the prevention and guarantee of rights and the fight against discrimination. She has a law degree and master degrees in criminal system and social problems and in social research techniques. She has different technical and directive responsibilities in public administration, in prevention and security matters and management, and organizational improvement. She has published different articles and books chapters, and has been professor at the Open University of Catalonia and at the University of Barcelona. From Gwangju, South Korea, we have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Shin Jong-gu. Jong-gu is the senior advisor for human rights and international affairs for the city of Gwangju. and the director of the Gwangju International Center. From 2014, Dr. Shin has been instrumental in organizing the World Human Rights Cities Forum, an annual event co-hosted by Gwangju, UNESCO, and the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. Dr. Shin is also Professor Emeritus at Chunnan University, where he dedicated 31 years to teaching and research. His academic career includes on-campus roles such as Language Center Director and International Dean. And last but not least, from Montevideo, we have Dr. Fabiana Goyeneche. Fabiana is the Director of International Relations and Cooperation of Montevideo and the President of the Steering Committee of ICAR. Fabiana is a lawyer and a public notary and has pursued further education in international relations, equality, and non-discrimination. She has occupied various governmental roles, including Director of Social Development for Montevideo, advisor in national ministries such as Social Development and Economy and Finance, and Executive Secretary of the Mercosudades Network. Additionally, she represents the Mayor of Montevideo, Carolina Cosse, in the United Nations Secretary General Advisory Group on Local and Regional Governments. Anabel, Gwangju, Fabiana, thank you so much for your participation and welcome to the webinar. Now, I would like to start this webinar by asking our panelists to help us understand what pursuing urban inclusion concretely means in their cities. And to do so, we will now briefly explore 3 best practices, one for each city, which proved particularly effective in addressing this issue. But meanwhile, I take this opportunity to invite our audience to ask any question they might have in the Q&A section that you will find at the bottom of your window. We will answer as many as possible in the second part of the webinar. So I now would like to start with Gwangju. I kindly ask my colleague Andrew if he would like to share the photo we received from Gwangju. Gwangju, can you please share with us what are the story and the urban action behind this photo? I'm sorry, Gwangju, you are muted.
So the photograph we see now on the screen shows a year-end party of my center, Gwangju International Center. It is full of both international and local members. I chose the picture because it shows the character of the service provided by the Gwangju International Center. The center was established as a civic organization at the recommendation of the city of Gwangju. It was partially funded by the city, but it was mostly funded by fee-paying members, and then it is an independent entity for which I was invited to be its managing director from the start of it without payment. That's why I'm still there as its director for the last 25 years. I was happy to make the center a cornerstone in cultivating an atmosphere of inclusivity within the city. Unlike most other migrant centers in Korea that cater exclusively to the immigrants, my center has created a participatory model that welcomes both local and international residents to be the member of the center. Members from diverse backgrounds are encouraged to become actively engaged, not only as a beneficiary, but also service providers. So this inclusive membership structure is quite different from the traditional benefactor-beneficiary relationship of migrant centers or international centers, fostering an equal relationship among the immigrant and the local community members. So one of the important example is that we extend inclusivity to each governance by inviting international members to serve on each board and as a service providers. the gentleman right beside me, he is also immigrant. He once served as a chair of the board. This approach not only enriches the organization with diverse perspectives, but also empowers the international community, giving them a stake in decision-making process. This is the first, now, I'm not sure whether you can see me here. This is the magazine we produce every month, the first English monthly in Korea, which is produced mostly by international volunteer writers. And then for the past decade, GIC has also been instrumental in organizing the World Human Rights Cities Forum, which is hosted by City of Gwangju, and now it is co-hosted by UNESCO Paris and the UN Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights. This forum has been pivotal in reinforcing Gwangju's legacy in human rights advocacy. It provides also a platform for the city to both showcase its achievement and learn from other human rights cities around the world. One of the best practices I want to share in the end today is the Global Community Project. GIC financially supports communities that comprise members from different countries. Participants in diverse communities strengthen their own network among local and international residents, and then they help themselves. There are numerous other activities Gwangju International Center is promoting to connect international residents. And then the city of Gwangju recently acknowledged our achievement and then asked us to manage the newly created Gwangju International Resident Center. Through this center, I believe we can expand our project to invite more international and local residents to work together. And then finally, I want to stress the importance of competent local organization in promoting inclusivity in local cities. And then this competent, I consider my organization, the competency of this organization was possible through the collaboration of local government, local universities, and then civil society. The collaboration of 3 different sectors created this organization, which was made possible to promote inclusive city in Gwangju. I will share more later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jungwoo. I think we are all very inspired and curious to know more about your strategy, but we can see that it really led by this idea of participation, multi-stakeholder approach, dialogue, and involvement of all parts, all components of the society for the benefit of each and everyone. Thank you very much, Jungwoo. And it is now my pleasure to leave the floor to Anabel, who has also prepared a photo, and similarly to what you showed, it's a publication.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. Today my speak will focus mainly on some aspects of the Barcelona City Council anti-discriminatory policy. The image shows the cover, for the report from the Barcelona Discriminatory Observatory. The first edition was in 2018, and it has been produced annually since then. The most important aspects of this experience is a report co-produced by the Office for Non-Discrimination, that is a municipal service, and more than 25 organizations with support service to victims of discrimination of different axes as racism, LGBTI phobia, disability, health, etc. The report records the complaints of discrimination collected by all of them. But apart from that, includes other studies or surveys, testing on discrimination in access of housing, for instance. And every year, a monographic focus on problems, for instance, access to justice is done, and also evaluation, jointly evaluation of public policies and recommendations. The project, the observatory, is based on a board created in 2017 with Office for Non-Discrimination and this organization that has produced other actions, by instance, specific coordination protocols to support victims between Office for Non-Discrimination organization in a specific axis for instance, LGTB phobia or racism, and it is a very good practice. But I want also focus in a result that is maybe not visible, the result of the board and the observatory and all the action plan share between municipal service and organization. A result not visible, but very important. That is that the board has generate autonomous collaborative projects between different organizations. Organizations specialists, for instance, specialized on racism, LGTB, or disability. They now have collaborative projects focusing, for instance, in intersectionality, how to integrate intersectionality in their services, attending, supporting, and reacting to discriminatory cases. And for me, these are very important results, because we live in societies to tend to work in separate groups, in separate identity groups. And it's very important to promote spaces of intersectionality and collaboration between these groups. And this and it's for the reason that I think that is an interesting result. It's not there are projects between organizations. Sometimes we are not involved in, but we are very proud of that. And I will stop here if you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anabel. Despite the fact that Gwangju and Barcelona are thousands of kilometers distant, we can understand that there is an important alignment in the goals and also in the ways to implement it. This creativity, if I may say so, deriving from having different people sitting around a joint challenge and contributing, it's particularly inspiring and proves effective even in very different and distant urban communities. And we are pleased to move now also quite distant, across the Atlantic Ocean, and reach our third panelist from Montevideo, Fabiana. Thank you so much for being with us. And we have your photo that shows a best practice from your city. Could you please tell us more about it?
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to apologize because I arrived so late. It's just that I'm actually talking from China right now, and I have some trouble with my internet connection, so I am so sorry. But well, I really was looking forward to tell you about this picture because it's a picture I really love so much. It's about an activity we organized in Montevideo. It was about sensibilization about the SDGs. We were working on a project about how to make SDGs more sensitive and more easy to communicate for the community, because we understood that the Sustainable Development Goals are something really important for us. Montevideo has committed to it since 2019. but we know that sometimes the global agenda is something that it's like with a very academic or very bureaucratic language that we have to get people to apprehend and to make more something of their daily lives. So when we decided to work on this, we thought that it was a great opportunity to work with migrant people who were living in Montevideo, to invite them to discuss departing from the SDGs, what were their goals, their dreams, why did they come to Montevideo, what were they expecting from our city, what were they achieving in our city, and what was still due from our city to do for them. And it was really amazing how something like the SDGs and the UN language that sometimes is so far from people became suddenly something really, really easy to dialogue about, and something that showed people, and especially migrant people, that when they are discussing about how to get to decent work or how to make real their right to education, to health, to public services, they are talking about the SDGs, and that local governments and regional governments have a very important part to do in order to achieve those 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So I wanted to share this with you because there are so many people and there are so many organizations talking about the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, but we really think as a city and also as the as ICAR, the cities network of inclusive and sustainable cities, that it is something really important for people to understand that these goals are about changing their lives, are about the human rights, and they're about a new and a better way of seeing development. And development we won't be able to achieve a real good development without protecting human rights, without inclusion, and without including migrant people in our cities. And so I think that, and maybe I am talking a little bit ahead of our agenda, but I think that participation is the key. So in this meeting, we made a multi-level meeting between Intendencia de Montevideo and the letter V municipality, the third level of government. We were two different levels of governments working about this, with migrant people from many different countries that were living in Montevideo, discussing how they could achieve and make real those dreams that they arrived to our city with. And it was really amazing to see that they were suddenly talking about education, work, housing, environmental rights, and taking care of the environment. And then how they realized that when they were discussing those subjects, they were talking about the SDGs, and they were able to see how much cities have to do with achieving those goals. So that's what I wanted to share with you about this picture today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabiana, and how inspiring is that you could leverage on the creativity, on the ideas, on the experience of people with different backgrounds. And of course, the task is very difficult, very challenging. The SDGs are truly the goals for humanity. But it is clear, as inscribed in SDG 17, about partnership, that doing this together is really the way, the only way to go, and also a good way of presenting the added value of diversity in communities. Thank you so much to all our three distinguished panelists for this first round of answers. And I have a second one before moving to the Q&A regarding the vision for the inclusive city of the future. What can we do to go further afield, to do even more, to make sure that the future urban communities will be free from discrimination? And I would like to invite our panelists to use a keyword to inspire us and use as a symbol of their answer. And of course, explain us what this keyword means for them. I would like to start with Anabel.
Thank you. My keyword for you and for my study, the most future keyword in our case is anti-racism. Compared to other cities in the world, Barcelona has a recent experience of ethnic racial diversity. Immigration from other countries began mainly in the 80s of the last century. And diversity is, however, fully present nowadays. And also racist attitudes and practices are. And our society is racist because the structures and institutions are racist, but the population is very reluctant to accept the idea. People associate racism with direct attacks, verbal, physical attacks, and not with the existence of social structures that oppress, that are unfair and oppress, as I said, people, and generate discrimination in access to housing, access to job, or other questions. And so the anti-racism, in a broad sense, including several forms of racism, of inferiorization, anti-Black, anti-Gypsy, anti-Muslim. The objective of anti-racism, of the action line we are working on, is increase awareness of the existence of these limits, social and institutional limits, and the action against that. The anti-racism, the key concept is be active on changing that. Well, in 2022, we approved the anti-racist Barcelona plan, and we have not a new mandate. We changed the government in some few months' time, some months ago, and they want to reinforce this action plan. With more making the action more transversal in every service in the city. So that is the good news. For give you an example, one of the more important issue in the plan that we have currently is educational field. We have recently published a video with a pedagogical material titled "Let's Talk About Racism in the Schools," that in our case is quite new, is very innovative. Let's talk about racism in school. Where in this video, the young people, the racialized young people, are the protagonists. And it's a pedagogical material proposed to trainees in the schools, but also to other non-formal educational settings. The material is published online, so if you are interested in, you can see it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anabel, and also for this availability of your resources. That's definitely interesting to inspire similar solutions. I like how you deal with the ugly truth in a way. Racism is there. We should not ignore it. We should rather understand it and deal with it. And of course, as an instructor myself, I really appreciate that you consider education as an important element in this strategy. Thank you, Anabel. So I would like to ask the same question about a keyword that inspires the inclusive city of the future to Fabiana.
Well, I must confess it was really hard for me to decide about what word I was going to choose, because I was thinking of it so much, and you think of so many things when you think of discrimination. But I think the word I would choose would be intersectionality. sometimes when we talk about discrimination, we think of intersectionality because we know that the different ways that oppression works make a really bad synergy among them. So and there are many people who are living different kinds of discrimination at the same time, and this works in a very difficult and struggling way that makes us suffer even more discrimination. And we know that it's not the same thing for a person to be a racialist person and to be also a woman or an elderly person or an LGBT person. So when all the different kinds of structural and historical discriminations come together to oppress someone, this is such a so much worse situation. But I think it's important to remember that and to consider this in order to make the necessary public policies to fight that kind of discrimination and this kind of oppression. So sometimes when we think of intersectionality, we remember how difficult it is to fight all of these kind of discriminations because they make themselves stronger reciprocally. But also, I think it's a word that can give us a lot of hope, because as well as discriminations come together to be stronger and to be harder to fight, it also intersectionality also makes us remember that when we come together to fight this kind of discriminations, we become stronger too. And I think it's very strategic to think that when for example, when we want to defend women's rights, we have to remember that even though all women suffer discrimination because of a gender inequality, and not every woman suffers it the same way. But when we come together and we also join the different kinds of voices and the different kinds of movements for human rights that are there, raising up, standing up, and empowering themselves, this makes the movement stronger. We have a great experience in Montevideo about this. Every time that Montevideo has achieved more rights and more a greater recognition of human rights, or that it has been able to have better public policies, it works so much better when we thought about these different kinds of opportunities together. So when we join LGBT movements, women's rights movements, racialist people's movements, and they come together, they are stronger too. So I think of intersectionality like this kind of two faces of the same coin, because you know that discrimination can be so hard to fight because you are fighting against historical, structural problems and oppressions that have been there for centuries. But you also know that because of that same reason, when you put together all the tools, all of the thoughts, all of the data that you have so much better tools to do it better, to make it better for people, and to see people grow stronger and be stronger together.
Thank you very much, Fabiana. I think it's very inspiring to reflect on your words, intersectionality, about the importance of understanding how complex difficulties, social challenges are in our cities. And it's interesting to see that the city government is able to start this reflection, which of course can find solutions that are targeting not only one of the difficulties, but more than them. Hopefully all of them together. So it's very, very impactful when you consider all the challenges together. Of course, very, very complex. And for that, I guess participation is the best way to go. Last but not least, we have a keyword missing from Gwangju. Please, the floor is yours.
I would like to use the same keyword, inclusivity. In fact, the current city mayor is promoting inclusive city Gwangju. So to create the inclusivity, I really consider human rights education is the most important concept, because without proper education to the growing generation, we cannot have a sustainable human rights or inclusive city or inclusive society in our future. So for the future, inclusive society we are aiming at, but at the same time, we have to make the most of human rights education to guarantee the sustainability of inclusive society in the future. And then to make the education to be effective, we also make the most of our historical legacy. Gwangju was quite well known in and outside Korea of its movement against dictatorship in the past and now as well. So the most of the citizens support liberal political agenda. And then also in 1980, Gwangju has a May uprising against the then military government. So which started grassroots movement toward democratization of South Korea. So we are very proud of our past involvement and then our legacy. So those historical legacy can be infused in our human rights education. And at the same time, I want to make the most of a newly created international resident center, which will be under my jurisdiction. And then through this center, we will promote more mainstreaming immigrant population. At the same time, already I mentioned World Human Rights Cities Forum. Through this kind of international event, we can promote inclusive city in the future here as well. So we are promoting inclusive society in Gwangju and then making the most of different kind of devices available at hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Django. It's so interesting to connect the present to the future, but also to the past. And thank you for remembering us that the call for freedom, for liberty, it's not only new, but it's also in the past. So it's important to honor those who elaborated those ideas and sometimes pay the price for it, like it happened in Gwangju. Thank you so much, Jonggu. And well, we now have time for the more interactive part of our webinar that devoted to a Q&A with our public. So I can see that there is already the first question coming in. I invite all of you, of course, to write the question. This can be a question for one of our panelists or an open question to all of them. If you allow me, I would like to start with one from myself, giving our public the time to answer them. It's a challenging question, but I think we have to face it. It's somehow the elephant in the room, considering the very difficult international situation that international relations are bringing to cities everywhere. So basically, it's about the fact that we are witnessing conflicts and wars today that fuel various forms of discrimination and can exacerbate division within society. So what is your recommendation for reaffirming inclusion in such situations? Maybe we can start with Fabiana.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Actually, yes, we are living so difficult times, and in cities are not indifferent to that. Even though so many responsibilities and so many decisions about the conflicts that our people are living are not in the hands of local governments, cities have a lot to do about building peace. And I think that's the key. Maybe we do not decide about wars. Maybe we are not responsible for the conflicts happening, but we have a lot to give about restoring and building peace about among each other. I was talking about the SDGs before, and the Sustainable Development Goal number 16 talks a lot about how you can build peace and give access to justice. And I think that cities have a long path showing how we can improve the way that people live with each other. For example, making sensibilization, having better public services in order to for people not to have to struggle and to be angry and hatred about what their daily lives are. And also we have a lot to give with city diplomacy, because cities can make declarations, can make statements, can make advocacy. We have a seat at the table nowadays in the global agenda. We can raise our voices and say and speak up for the people who are living in our cities, speak up for the people who are for the children, for the people who are the future, because mayors and local governors are the ones that are there at the forefront all the time. And the same way that that happened when we lived during the COVID, that we weren't the ones that were deciding what happened with the WHO, or if it is a pandemic or not, or whatever, but we were there giving public health services, attending people, giving vaccines, giving food where there was lack of food, taking care of our cities. So I think there's a lot to do from the local governments, from the cities. And I think that city diplomacy has showed it has the tools, it has the knowledge, it has the bravery to stand up and raise the voices of our people in order to build peace and to claim what we need to do. And mostly because, and let me say, but I think that our multilateral system is in a very bad place nowadays. And national governments are showing the weakness of these multilateral spaces when they have so big discussions and such a lack of important decisions and such a lack of ways of making these decisions be firm and get executed. And while all of this happens, cities are there working for people, dialoguing, making statements, and making diplomacy, trying to build a new future for people. So I think that the key is that we have to keep doing advocacy, keep dialoguing between us, and also keep climbing for a seat at the table, because we have so much to give, and we can show that the future is in the cities. People are living in the cities, people are suffering in the cities, and most of the world population are living in the cities. So the conflicts are there, but the peace is gonna be built there too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabiana, for this call to action, not just to endure these difficulties, but also to take the future in their own hand. Of course, this will be a dialogue and a collaboration with the other actors of international relations, and the way is city diplomacy, as you mentioned, in partnership, why not, with those international organizations such as UNESCO that clearly recognize the added value of municipal governments in international governance. And so I would like to ask the same question to our two panelists. What can cities do in front of these difficulties of international relations, wars, conflicts, armed violence that has an impact even in the cities distant kilometers away? Gwangju, would you like to go next?
I'm afraid you are giving us quite a difficult question to handle. I did not expect this much difficult question. By the way, I would try to share my 2 pennies. As I already mentioned, I believe that education, citizen education, is one of the solutions to answer this kind of challenges. So we are facing now the extreme differences of ideas political ideas, and then economic division, and then even digital divide, language divide. The society is dividing farther and farther away from each other, producing extreme conflict. So I really believe that from younger generation, we have to educate ourselves to understand the differences. So I believe that education is the key to the problems we have now. But the education for the younger generation now in Korea, for example, are mostly focused on successful future career, successful job choices. So we are educating our younger generation to be competent in the job market, but not in understanding each other, not promoting peaceful world in the future. So education, I believe, is the key solution to our problems facing the current society. So in that regard, I really like UNESCO policy on citizen education, so which is very nice. But at the same time, I really want to promote the civil society movement. More people can get involved in the civil society activities. Teachers, for example, are too busy. Myself, as a professor in the past, I was too busy to get engaged in civil society activities. But still, we have to invite academics, government officials to participate in civil society activities, to mix with different people. So without proper education and then civil society activities, I don't think we can have more peaceful future in our world. That's my 2 pennies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gwangju. This is encouraging, and thank you. We need it now in this moment. And it's a very difficult task for educators, of course, to fully exploit the power of education. But that's a very, very important mean, of course, and civil society and the broad engagement, it's the other way to go for sure. And last but not least, Anabel, how is your vision on this, on the echoes of conflicts that certainly also affect your city? What can be done in terms of inclusion?
Yeah, well, in fact, as you said before, the global conflicts affects locally, and we have during the cause of war in Ukraine, a cause of the war in Palestine, a cause of several, you have in the city hate graffitis, you have sometimes demonstrations, you have and aggression. So you have the global conflict at city. So my reflection is be prepared. That means that it's crucial to have political inclusions, politics, resources, structures, especially dialogue spaces between communities, to be prepared. And it's obvious, but it's very important, and I will give an example. Barcelona has a terrorist attack in 2017, and City Council was very frightened. Of course, upset, but very frightened, because Barcelona have worked a lot during years in intercultural coexistence, in having the dialogue with their own communities in a positive way. So we were frightened. We think it's going to be gone, all this work. But a very interesting thing is happened. Barcelona reacts to the attack with the phrase, with the slogan, sorry, in English, we we are not frightened. And the demonstrations were under this, we are not frightened. And this was the message. And in the streets, all civil society were together, including Muslim people. And it was very easy to have that, because we have these previous structures we have the Office for Religious Affairs, we have the reference of all community, we have so we will prepare, and we were able to do that. So it's very important, be prepared. Because you don't know in our global context what's going to happen in the one day to the other. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anabel. Being prepared to be able to act together. This is something great. It's a united response to armed violence, to suffering, which reassure and concretize the inclusion we have been discussing. We have a very interesting question coming from Agata Ridzezva. Do cities incorporate gender perspective into their actions? If yes, how? Are the cities involved in any international network which promotes gender equality and inclusivity? I think Fabiana already mentioned part of this topic, so maybe we can start with you, Fabiana, if you want to complement what you already started discussing under the framework of intersectionality, with the idea of adding the element of the city network.
Sure, I'll be really happy to. And first of all, Agata, if you can tell us through the chat, what city are you from? I would really like to know. Yes, actually, Montevideo has been including gender perspective on its public policies for more than 30 years. We are now in I think the 4th gender equality plan, and what we do is make a plan with objectives and with goals and with indicators in order to evaluate if we achieve those goals. And also now we are working on the budget in order to know what part of the budget we are dedicating to gender equality public policies. So this gender equality plan sets the goals, it sets the way it's going to be evaluated, and these goals are not only for the gender equality advisory, that is the area that has the direction on the local government of how you apply or how do you develop gender equality public policies, but it has goals and objectives for every area in the local government. So we even if it is for the financial resources department or the IT department or the human resources department or the social development department, every department in the city of Montevideo is obligated, is forced to have these gender equality goals and to show how much of their budget they dedicate to these gender equality goals. And also this is evaluated and monitored permanently by a commission that is confirmed with different government employees, not political ones, but career employees that have been there because of their position and their merits from many different areas. So you have a kind of governance in the city that is specifically dedicated to applicate and to evaluate the gender equality policies. And to answer the rest of the questions, yes, many of the city networks that Montevideo is part of have different kinds of gender equality goals or commitments. I'll start for ICAR. ICAR is the network that has been founded by UNESCO, and I always like to say that these international city networks against racism that came from UNESCO was one of the first ways that a global agency so important as UNESCO had the vision to see how important local governments were to fight and to work for human rights. So that's something I'm really proud of. And everything we do about fighting discrimination and trying to achieve human rights is with gender perspective. But also Montevideo is part, for example, of UCLG, United Cities and Local Governments, that is a global network too. That and UCLG has a document that is like the main statement that cities and local governments do when they become part of this network. And this document is called Pact for the Future. It has three pillars, and one of them is the Pact for the People, and all of their commitments are related to gender equality, and it works on municipal feminism. Also, the Metropolis networks, that is a city network formed by cities of 1 million people or 1 million inhabitants or more, has a co-presidency on gender equality, and Mayor of Montevideo, Carolina Cose, was the co-president on gender equality last year. So everywhere we go, we try to commit on gender equality, and we try to work strategically with different cities that we know they're working on it too. For example, with Barcelona. It's not easy. It's always a struggle, because you know that you take one step forward and sometimes 2 steps back, because it's a permanent struggle. But yes, gender equality is something that cities are standing up for. And also, at least in the case of Montevideo, we started to work on this way before that national government did. Actually, policy that has been implemented by the national government is inspired by what started happening in Montevideo. So yes, there's a lot going on, but a lot to do yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabiana, for this comprehensive overview. We can see that your municipality has been very, very active locally and internationally on this topic. Anabel, you have the floor, and I can see you shared an interesting document on the chat.
Yeah, well, concerning development global objectives. Sorry for my English. Well, I share in the chat a link with to the Barcelona strategy on that. And it's very interesting, the annual report, but it's a voluntary thing that in this annual report is interesting. They analyze all the municipal local policies in terms of ODSs, global objectives, and we have also indicators. It's interesting, and it's especially interesting that we also organize our local budget on these objectives, so we know how many budget we devote to each objective.
Well, thank you very much, Anabel. You already answered the question from Claire Hart from Montpellier.
Sorry.
We say hello to Claire. She was a panelist to our previous webinar series, Cities and Climate Solution, with a focus on waste. You can find the recording on the website of the City Diplomacy Lab. And additionally, to this interesting point, Anabel, if you would like to mention your take on gender, how this connects to inclusion in your work life at the Barcelona City Council.
Okay, sorry. I was looking at the chat and well, in fact, as a little bit as Fabiana says, well, in Barcelona, we have a long tradition of gender politics. We have from several years, we have 2 lines. One specialized on gender equality with a special service and a special political plan, and another strong action line with service, a plan and service against violence against women. with specific services, and is different because gender politics has an external perspective, but also is very focused on equality in organization, and politics action against violence against women is more external, more coordinated, and with other actors, justice, police, and well, it's for that we have these different lines.
Thank you very much, Anabel. And last but not least, Django, I would like to ask you, if you allow me, the two questions together. So first of all, what is your work specifically targeting gender issues? And how have you been working with the SDGs, if you have planned any activities related to the Sustainable Development Goals?
I would like to answer not as an individual, but to represent the city of Gwangju. In fact, the city of Gwangju has promoting gender equality quite actively. So I feel proud that to share with you the fact that Gwangju City has the highest number of women city councilors. So about nearly 50%, about 43% of city councilors are women, which is the highest in Korea. So why is it possible? I really believe that because of the tradition of promoting democracy and justice. And then we also have highest number of civil society organizations in the nation, which means liberal parties, liberal government, and then higher number of people getting involved in civil society promote gender equality. Statistically, I can claim that is true. And then we also have a SDG under city government. We have SDG organization, which is promoting 7 sustainable development goals in the cities, which has been interpreted in local government policies. So we are also actively engaged promoting human rights cities, inclusive societies, and then SDG agenda put together.
Thank you very much, Django. We have another question about the term of inclusion. Inclusion, which is part of our title of the webinar. It's also in the acronym of ICAR itself and its regional sections. This is a challenging word. What does inclusion mean to you? If you can provide some clarity very briefly, because certainly this is a large topic, but in a nutshell, what is inclusion to you? Django, since I see the microphone is on, I take this opportunity to ask you first.
So to me, inclusion means mainstreaming the minority groups. So if the minority groups participate in the community as a mainstream actors, then we consider that community inclusive. That's my definition.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring definition. Fabiana.
Inclusion, trying not to fall in the academic station between inclusion and integration. I think that what's important about inclusion and what is important and what's important about inclusion and what we do in ICAR is leaving no one behind and making it possible for everyone to feel part of the city and to achieve their rights in order to be happy, to find the public happiness, and also respecting diversity, because being included and being integrated doesn't mean being the same. It means being equal.
Thank you very much, Fabiana. Very clear. And Anabel, last but not least.
I'm going to copy Fabiana because for me the keyword is respect diversity, and especially in immigration aspects, not avoid assimilate or look for assimilate people. I mean, for us, a key concept is interculturality, respecting diversity of groups regarding the ethnic racial diversity, but in general, respect diversity, make possible to people have their lives and rights in all axis of discrimination, fighting against all the forms of discrimination.
Thank you very much. What a nice way to conclude our webinar today, inspiring our future urban action with these definitions of inclusion. It's really been a pleasure for me to moderate and welcome our panelists, Anabel Rodríguez Basanta from Barcelona, Xin Jonggu from Gwangju, and Fabiana Goyeneche from Montevideo. I also would like to thank our co-hosts, Andrew Wells from the Columbia Global Center, Paris, Linda Tino and Ewan McQuaid-Jones from UNESCO. And of course, thank you all in the audience for your kind participation and your questions. You are all invited to our next webinar, Cities and Social Solutions Age, taking place on May 16 at 10 a.m. Paris time. The webinar will be organized in partnership with the World Health Organization and will feature the participation of Cockburn in Australia, Sharjah in the Emirates, and Cardiff in the UK. You will find the link to register in the chat. Thank you very much and goodbye.